Okay, welcome back everybody to our fourth and final class of the Business Mastery series. I hope you've been enjoying this presentation. This is really very powerful stuff. I don't know if you I don't think I said this before, but Steve is a professional business coach. Like people pay him to work with him one on one. All the things that he's giving you here are things he's worked with people for years and years, and it's very high level. We're rushing through 4 weeks. It's been a ton of information, but we've been sending you these worksheets, and hopefully you're able to take some of this stuff and implement it into making your business more productive. So this week's class, the final class, is about team, right? Okay, how to hire people and how to have a good company environment so that everyone works together, because this is a very interesting thing, human dynamics. Sometimes there's like two struggles the people have: getting their business off the ground, will you get customers? And then as the business starts to get starts to take traction and take on a life, and you have to start bringing in other people to work with you, all of a sudden human dynamics come into play. Like and sometimes you could have a great business, and the team kills the business. It's not done right if you don't hire the right people and you have the right work environment. So that's today's class. We want to cover some good information on how to make good hires and how to have a good company culture, so that not only does the new staff members of your team enhance your business, but it helps it grow and take off to new levels. So I pass the baton on to Steve now to take it from here.
All right. All right. So everybody hang on. We're going to go for another ride today. If you can, in the chat, put down if you currently have team members or not. And then this way I'll know how to address it. And one of the things I want to sort of share with you a little bit is, my purpose here over these, there was a lot of information, but the goal that I really wanted to do is get you to change the way you think about business. Because when we have a small business and we're sitting there and we're caught in the day to day, and I wanted you to really step back and get a perspective. And over these 4 weeks, the first thing I did is sort of gave you the roadmap how to build a business, not necessarily what you need to do today or the next day, but what is the steps that you need to take over the next 3, 5, 20 years in building your business. Then we got a little bit into marketing. What were the 5 most important numbers that you need to have in your business to increase your profitability? And if you take anything away from these 4 weeks, if you start tracking those five drivers and start implementing strategies of what you can do to increase those numbers by just 10% every 90 days, you'll see magic start happening in your business. Then we talked about, as we start growing our business, now we need to start, fires are going to start popping up all over the place. We need to start systematizing our business to be able to scale up at a faster pace. And then today's focus is, once you have all these things in place, it's when you finally realize that you don't build your business, your team does, right? Because most of us in our business, when we're starting out, we sort of, I like to sort of say, in most businesses, we sort of get stuck in what I call the owner's trap, right? Is the owner's doing all the selling, they might be offering too many different things to sort of really specialize in one. You're the only one capable of actually delivering on your product or service, and you're the only one who really interfaces with the company. And what happens is you're going to start seeing symptoms of being trapped in your business, that the business might be slow when you're away, or does the business even work if you're not working, right? Um, Customers only can come to you when they have problems, or your growth has reached a plateau based on either your ability, your knowledge, or your just capacity to do things. And then finally, the last one is, if you do have employees, your employees can't make a decision without asking you first. because you're like the Superman who comes in whenever there's a problem, that comes in and fixes everything without really teaching them what to do, right? And so what I've been trying to show you is the way to get out of that trap is following these 6 steps, and most importantly, these 4 steps, because up until team, you're starting to gain back your time, and synergy is about duplicating yourself and your business, and results is about creating really passive cash flow in your business. But I know most of you guys are really in the mastery stage, right? And it starts off with destination mastery, that you need to have a clear picture, again, of where you're going with the business. Not necessarily this quarter, this year, but 3, even 5 years down the road, right? You need to have money mastery. You know, there's some people that have been communicating here over the last few weeks, and they really don't have the finances set up in their business correctly. So they don't have really good information to make good business decisions. You know, then there's time mastery is how do you, and you can't, as I've talked about, you can't master time. All we could do is master how we use it. Time's just a flow of energy, right? And then the delivery mastery is, and that's where we're creating the basic systems, and that's where most of you guys are at right now. And I understand is that just being able to deliver your product and service in a way that your company or your customers can expect, right? But to be able to grow the business is you need to create a team, right? It needs to be smart. Your business organization needs to be very well balanced, you know, and as long as there's been um well, let me just sort of just really hop right into it. The things that I want to really talk about today are going to be 2 different things. One is sort of the, if you want to call it, the system of creating a team and employees, and not just a group of individuals that just happen to work for you. And then the second part of our class here today, we're going to go through and talking about how to recruit people to come to work for you. And it's all about the concept of recruitment is just marketing. So how do we apply marketing concepts to hiring and new people? So what we're going to first start off with and talk about are the 6 keys to a winning team. And we're going to spend a little bit of time on each of these right here, from strong leadership, common goal, rules of the game, creating action plans, supporting some risk taking, and then we need to have 100% involvement and improvement in them. So it starts off with number one is strong leadership. As a owner of a business, your job is to lead them into the future, is create passion among your teams and keep everybody responsible for what they have. And then as you grow your business, you need to create a leadership team, right? And if you don't have any employees, it's like, okay, I'm a leadership team of one, right? But no, you look for different people that you can make part of your leadership team. They could be mentors through this organization. When I started my business and it was just me, it was my wife was my accountability partner, right? I would, each week I would sort of report to her what I was doing, the progress I was making on the business, because it got it out of my head and I was explaining, and she would ask questions and it made me start to think, right? So you need to let everybody, as you're building it, as everybody is aligned towards a common goal, which we're going to talk about. So when when we're creating a team, it starts off with you as the leader, but most of the time, especially right now, you're spending all your time focusing in the business, right? Because it's you, it's the business, it's all one, right? And what I'm trying to get you to think about is bigger, is even though you're doing everything in the business, you are actually wearing multiple hats, and you need to break those hats out, because when you eventually want to start hiring a team, or you're going to figure out where you need to replace yourself. But right now, you're spending all your time in the business, and then eventually you run out of time. So when you run out of time, what do? Well, I need help, right? So then we start hiring people to get to the point to do the things that I don't have time to do, right? But because you're still busy, you don't really have time to train them well. So they're coming back to you, and sometimes people would always say, when they start hiring people, you know what? It was a lot easier when it was just by myself. I'm just going to fire everybody and go back, right? That's because we're not taking our time to really train them, and then lost in all of this shuffle is our customers. But really, your job is as you grow your business and a leader of the organization is really have to spin the wheel the other way, right? Your job is to create and support a team, right? How do you do that? By providing them with systems, by providing them with goals, by creating, by paying them well, right? By giving them benefits, right? Then the team supports your customers. They support your customers by becoming their problem solvers and helping them get what they want. So then this way, eventually the customers support your business through referrals and paying their bills, and then the business can support you, right? So when it's talking about leadership, it really starts off with, and we talked about this in the couple of sessions ago, was create is understanding why you exist, right? What's the purpose? What drives your business right now? I mean, my why all goes back to my dad, who was a small business owner, and he was really good at what he did, but he sucked at running a business. And even though he was able to sort of make ends meet and give, whatever my sister and I needed, and to have a pretty happy childhood, the eventually his business went bankrupt and we lost the house that we grew up in. And basically, as I was talking to him when he got older, and I was talking about a little bit about what I'm doing and helping business owners, and it hit me, if there would have been somebody there like me that could have helped him and guided him on how to be a better business owner, how to be a better boss, his life would have been easier, my life would have been easier. And that's why my business exists. That's why I'm here to help you guys too, to help give you some insight so you don't make the same mistakes that my dad did, right? And the next thing is not only why do we exist, but what is it that we do, right? When and thinking about it this way, because when you have your detailed description of what you do and you combine it with your why your business just really exists, it's a really powerful thing that will drive the purpose of your team and then also your customers, right? And if you think about your why doesn't necessarily change over time, but it could. And this happens when the market changes and demands shift a little bit. We all remember the company Kodak, right? Well, their motto, their focus, their vision was we create memories. But what did they actually do? They created film for cameras. And they ended up, going out of business per se, because they missed opportunities in digital photography. And it was actually a technology they actually even invented. But the strategic failure was caused because they didn't really understand that why they were in business was to create memories. So when the marketplace shifted, they failed to shift with it. Now they're just a memory. Think about it, right? So that it's all about strong leadership from that way. But then it comes down to creating a common goal, right? And a real team means a group of people who share a common goal and collective responsibility. And this could be, sort of, even like a basketball team where the individuals work together selflessly to achieve a common goal of winning. If one person is that ball hog, if you will, the whole team falls apart, right? And those are things that we necessarily have to do. One of the first things that I do when workshops and I'm working with teams and I'm trying to bring them together is help them to create a common goal of the team. And most of them, it's a hard thing to do. And so I give them a common goal. And the common goal is how do we want to be known as the best, whatever our niche is. And I was working with a small landscape design company, and their goal was, hey, they wanted to be the best landscape design company in Jacksonville. Well, now that's grown to they want to be
We're in
known
the middle of
as
a
within the state,
Zoom here.
right? And
Quick.
oh,
Okay.
for a question,
Yeah.
Yes? Nope. Okay, sorry. So one of the things I do in our workshop is I ask them if they wanted to be the best, they have to describe what does the best look like. In your industries, what does the best look like? Right? And then once you understand that, then the next question I would ask the team is, okay, on a scale of 1 to 5, how well are we doing in each of these areas? We describe the best. Then I ask them, all right, let's prioritize these. Which ones that if we improved on, we'll see a dramatic increase benefit to the team. And what happens is it was like an overnight change. They created a plan to improve their business, and now they're one of the best landscape design companies in all of the state of Florida. And it started with asking that one question, right? And it all starts within us. That's the power of the point, right? It's our point of choice that we have. We could sit there and look at our business and the economy and all of our competition. We can blame others, we can come up with excuses, or we could be in denial, or we could flip that and we could start taking personal responsibilities for our actions, being accountable for the results that we say that we want, right? The goals that we set for ourselves, and then take ownership of the opportunities that come our way. We could be responsible, we could be accountable, but we have to take ownership of that situation. And that's what I'm looking at it. And my challenges, everybody here, is I put a lot of information out. I know that. But you need to sort of take ownership of all the things that you learn. What's the first thing that if you improve on, that your company will be moving in the right situation. So look at all the handouts that I've given you. There's a lot of little how-tos in those itself. So once we create that common goal, then we need to create the rules of the game. The rules of the game is how we succeed. Last week when we talked about systems, and or maybe it was a couple of weeks ago, one of the things that we were talking about was in one of the handouts that I gave you was creating, it was a document to create your points of culture for your team. What are the values that are important to your team, right? And what I try to do with my clients is take those values as we've spoken about and turn them into recognizable behaviors, right? Because we need to align our team to these common values. And most of the time you're going to find is you can't change people's values, right? So, but once you identify them, now you can hire people based on those values. And if you've ever had anybody on your team or have ever been in a business, you've probably seen people that have not really shared the same values of the team or the company. And those were people that were eventually no longer with the company, right? So, when I talk about, taking those values and turn them into behaviors, one of my clients came up with this behavior. It was be a floor sweeper. What do you think that means for that company? What did it mean? Somebody just turn on your mic or on silence. What does being a floor sweeper mean? Nobody?
Just ready, I'll jump in. Just
Okay.
be ready to do anything that needs to be done to make it happen.
All right. Somebody said clean up your mess. Okay, that's cool. But really what it means is for this company, it represents being a hard worker, right? And that there's no job that's too small for anybody on our team. And so that went with the business owner itself. If you see something that, you the little example that he was, if you see a piece of garbage on the floor, just pick it up, right? And that's what he's was sort of well known for, is walking around and just picking up garbage off the floor and putting things away. And the team saw him doing these little things, and it was now created a spirit among everybody. Everybody is going to sit down and sort of do what it takes to work hard to grow this business, right? So that's the whole concept of rules of the game. Then the next thing we need to go
Steve, can I ask a
is
quick question?
please.
So sorry to jump in. I was just
Oh no,
curious
please.
if that slide also references, I've heard some larger businesses, what they'll do is they'll switch people around within different roles to get, experience in different types of things, like someone in shipping to do a little bit of sales, someone in sales to do either shipping or, management or whatever, and they try to cross-train, cross-breed.
Yeah, oh, can't think of the name of the company, and the book was, it's the online shoe store. Um, Zappos.
Amen?
No,
What?
Zappos. So I don't
Oh,
know if
okay.
anybody's heard of Zappos here before.
Yeah, the
But
shoes.
yeah, exactly. So the owner of Zappos, or not the owner, but the CEO, and tragically, after he sort of retired, he was tragically killed in a car accident, like within months, which is a tragic story. But he really changed the way the face of they did business. And one of the stories that he tells in his book was he was hiring, usually they would have this whole, they have very good culture, and how they live their culture, and the team would hire somebody, and then after they basically gave him the position, they would meet with the CEO and he'd get to know him, and just sort of, sort of building a relationship. And one of the things he said was at the end of the meeting, he said, well, tomorrow when you show up, just dress casual, because you're going to work in the warehouse, and the next day you're going to be working in the call center, and you're going to sort of see what's going on. And why was it important for them to do that? Because those were the two most important departments within the company, and everybody needed to understand that and understand what's going on. And this guy just sort of says, hey, you hired me to be your corporate attorney, I don't work in a warehouse. And they had this discussion going back, and so he just opened up his his desk drawer, picked out a checkbook, wrote him a week's salary, and said, thank you very much, I don't think you're going to be a right fit for the team. And so that's more of a culture thing, but it's really important. Like, a lot of my clients, when they onboard somebody, like the landscape design company, they have a nursery, and they got an installation crew, or they have a maintenance crew, and they even have in a back office and a marketing department. And what they would do is, when they would hire somebody, the first week was just shadowing people around in different departments, so they understood what everybody does. And that's a great way of bringing that up. So, Bill, thanks for that comment, because it's really
Okay,
important.
thank you.
Right. So next step is our action plan. Is okay, so now we need to figure out is what's important right now. What do we need to do? And I think that's the thing that I talked about when created a workshop with my client, is they came up with, okay, these are the things that we need to do to improve in these areas. And they created the plan. And now what happens is, when plan gets created, they set the goal, and the team sets or the company sets the goal. And when the team creates the plan, they now have more buy-in. But we really need to sit down and understand who does what by when, right? And I work with my clients. We try to create 90-day plans for the company and for key departments or individuals within that company. Because most of the time is after about 60 to 75 days, we sort of lose track of our goals a little bit. So usually what I'm doing is working with my clients at about after 6 months, and we're starting to do a 90-day review and start working at where do we need to be over the next 90 days, as I get them focusing on finishing up their goals. Because otherwise, if we went for just annual goals, you just sort of lose track of where you're at. Right. And really, the last thing it really comes down to is, really, you have to support risk taking. When we started our business, we really, we weren't as good as we are right now. We made a lot of mistakes, and we learned from those mistakes. So as you bring people on, you have to give them enough leash to make a mistake, but you have to turn that mistake into a learning experience. And what I talked with my clients is, just make that part of your training budget. And eventually, that training budget, that money that you've spent to fixing people's mistakes, once you got rid of all those mistakes, now you could turn that money that's all that you've been spending, and turn that into proactively training your team to be even better, right? So that's how I help them develop their training budget, and shifting those monies across. And then the last one is 100% involvement. It's all about team engagement, right? Is when we talk about engagement, this is probably the best definition that I saw out there, which is a deep and broad connection that employees have with a company that results in a willingness to go above and beyond what's expected to them to help their companies succeed. Has anybody ever worked in a organization that was very well engaged? Oh, let me go. I just saw a question. I'll come back to that risk question in a second. But has anybody been involved in a team that's like that? Because it's a really powerful experience. And
Can you
when I was
define what you
talking,
mean by well engaged,
all right,
other than what I see on the screen, obviously?
all right, let me ask you this. Based on this, what does it mean to you?
I mean, I can tell you, I'm going down memory lane for a second. I don't know if you remember the old days of technology with Lotus 123 and those guys.
It was a long time ago, yes.
So yeah, I'm originally from Boston and I worked at LDB, which was Lotus Development Building. So one of the things they did was they got in trouble for this and they stopped it soon after. But like for several months I was there, they would have a Friday afternoon party with flowing kegs of beer and um, pizza. They would bring in a pizza truck and just raid it, whatever. So the bottom line is people were able to bond, and usually the VPs were serving the beer and not anymore in today's day and age, but you know what I'm saying. So it was, I suppose their way of appreciation.
So to a certain, and again, you have to understand their team, but to a certain extent, yes, is how do we appreciate our team? Maybe that's not the right or appropriate in today's day and age to do it, but I have clients that do that stuff all the time at the end of the week, and it's a way of building them together. And one of the things I do with when I do a team day is the thing that I call a wiffle, where I would get everybody together in a big circle, and what a wiffle stands for is what I feel like expressing. And the and so everybody is open up in the whole idea here is we can't have crossed arms, crossed legs. Everybody just listens and you can't respond to what anybody says. You have to resist that. And I was doing this with this one landscape design. When I started working with these people, they had like 30 employees. Now they had like 60, right? And what was happening is I heard this response that came, hey, it's like before I worked here, I used to hate getting up in the morning and going to work, and I was always late. But since I started working here, and I really appreciate the work I do, and everybody appreciates what I do, I'm excited to show up and get to work every day. That's team engagement. Because usually what happens is you have a bunch of people on your team, you're all rowing the boat, right? But what happens is you got like 52% of your team is just disengaged, right? They're just going along for the ride. They're just showing up for a paycheck. And you actually have about 18% of those people that are actively disengaged. They're actually sort of like throwing the anchor off of the back of the boat and slowing you down, right? And then we only then have about 30% of the people that are totally engaged, right? They show up and these are the people that take ownership of what's going on, right? The people that are disengaged, they might be accountable, they might be a little bit responsible, but it's the engaged people that we want to do that really take ownership of growing and being part of this business, right? Because when you set a goal of to be the best in the industry, everybody and these common goals cannot be about the money, because if it's about the money, the growth of the business, it's like, hey, I'm going to work really hard to make the business owner rich, right? That doesn't work, right? So but everybody wants to work for the best, right? If you have a goal to be, you want to be voted by the business journal as one of the best places to work in our city, that's a great common goal. Because now what does that look like? What do we have to do to change that? Because on the other side, that when we have disengaged employees, about 34% of what you pay them is wasted. And that can cost you a lot, right? And yep, really, you got that exactly right. That the engaged company sounds where an environment where everybody takes ownership. And That's exactly right. Because what happens is when you bring people onto the team, everybody in the beginning is sort of acts like sheep. Everybody is just following the crowd, not sure what to do or what are the rules. And then sometimes we then go in there and say, okay, what do I need to do to grow within this company? And they start having this me attitude. But when the magic happens is that when we have a we attitude, what is it that we can do to where we could all, come together for that common goal to be the best? Right? Does that make sense? So I'm going to go back into, there was a question there that I looked back and I think it was about risk, right? Somebody had a question, what does the risk look like? Well, sometimes it's like the hardest thing for somebody to let go is when you're first hiring somebody, is to give them responsibility, and you want to totally sort of like micromanage every sort of move that they do, which in one sense it's not micromanaging in the beginning. It's, you have to think of it as training, but you want to train them to enough to where you could have trust in them that you don't have to look over your shoulder every time they do something, right? So you need to give them room to make a mistake, right? All the little mistakes that, when I'm talking about it, it's all the little mistakes that we all do in the business, overlook something, write up something wrong, whatever those things are, but they cost us money, right? Sometimes they could be big mistakes as well. And those are things that we need to really sit down and take a look at and to cut out, as long as we use those as a learning experience. Can't remember where I read this or heard this, but there was this one guy that was on Wall Street and he made this one trading mistake and he lost his company $1 million. The next day he went into the head of the office there and he thought that was his last day. And the guy started asking him, okay, what happened here? What caused you to do this? And turned it into a learning experience. And he says, all right, make sure you don't do that again. He goes, you mean I'm not fired? And he goes, why would I fire you if I just spent $1 million training you? Right. And that's what I sort of have to mean is give them room to make the mistakes. And obviously, and that guy eventually became the most loyal person in that company and eventually replaced him as the CEO, I think many years, or the head of that office, like 10, 15 years down the road. And that's how we sort of create really that we attitude, and we're all working together, because it all comes down to those 6 keys, is creating the synergy where 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it's 3, 4, 5, or 6. Does that make any sense? Okay, we spent a little bit more time on that I wanted to, but let's get into talking about how do we build our dream team, and really the 7 ways of that recruitment is marketing, right? Because the thing about it is the average cost of hiring a bad employee is about 30% of the first year's salary, right? Going back to sort of even like what I said is what happens when we hire a disengaged employee, right? So if you're paying somebody, just making round numbers, is $50,000, it's really costing you about $15,000 a year, right? Or maybe you've worked at a place, or if you hired somebody, or somebody got promoted where they didn't necessarily live up to the expectations. They were the wolf in the sheep's clothing, as the thing it is. And we have to understand that these people can become toxic in our organization if we're not careful. So I'm going to sort of take a sidestep from this recruitment part, but just help me and give you a little lesson in how do you deal, or what is the cost of having toxic people in your organization? Because it's really, it's really important. We've had, maybe you had they just don't, maybe they just don't fit the culture. They could be good people, but but they're holding you hostage because they're really good what they do, right? But because they have a poor attitude and they don't really follow all the rules, and they just try to get away with stuff, they're really becoming toxic to other people on the team. So let's sort of, I made this little graph to help explain this a little bit. So it's a 2 by 2 graph right here. Down on the bottom is attitude, low attitude on the left, high attitude on the right. And then on the other one is their skill level, right? Low skill level to high skill level. So now if we have somebody that has a high skill level
Hi,
and
Sean
a
Goranson.
good attitude, is there a question? Nope, okay. Is
Sorry,
that's
I
where we
forgot to
would,
mute.
all right, no worries. That would be that's where we put our A employees, right? They have a good attitude and good employees. And then the next easy one is people that have poor skills and a poor attitude. Those are our D. That means they're dead to us. Boom, we get those are easy to let go. So the question being here is what do we do with our B employees? And this is where it gets tricky, right? There's some owners, when I ask them, they say, hey, well, the B, they may be going to top left, right? Because their B employees, they have good skills and right that. You actually say we put them down into the bottom right? Because they have a great attitude but they might have some skills, but they haven't developed it enough to be an A player. And then this leaves us with our C players, which go in the top left, right? And that means these are the people that have the great skill, but maybe not the best attitude, if you will. So the question is, what happens if we keep a C player in our organization? Guess what? Most owners do because they're hard, like I said before, they're hard to get rid of because they got great skill sets, right? When we're afraid if that we let them go, what's going to happen is it's going to be hard to fill that position. So I want you to flip the switch. I want you to think about this differently. What would happen if you put an A player working with a C player? The C player doesn't have that great attitude. They're pressing all the buttons, they're taking advantage a little bit, they're trying to push the boundaries. When the C player is partnered with that A player who's doing a great job, they have the great attitude and they're playing by all the rules. But when they see the C player is not doing the same stuff and they're getting also pretty good results, but they're not playing by the same rule book, now that A player has this prolonged exposure to the C player with the bad attitude, and they're starting to morph into that C player. And then the attitude of entitlement, pushing the boundaries, getting away with things can be sort of a really infectious thing. And it can affect other people because they see the other people getting away with it and doing less and less and less contribution to teamwork and simply just getting away with it. But remember, whatever we allow, we are going to encourage. So if you let that C player continue, then you're going to have that possibility of it affecting that A player negatively. The thing is a person could easily shift their attitude downward. It's a lot more difficult to move somebody's attitude in a positive direction, right? Which is why most C players really don't want to get better. They don't want to improve their attitude. They don't think they have a problem, and maybe they're not. Maybe they're still just not even a really good fit within your organization. So we have to make sure that we don't keep those C players because they're going to impact the A players, which is really bad. Now, if the C player is with a B player, what's going to happen is that B player is now going to have a poor attitude eventually, and then because of their low skill level, they've just morphed into a D. So we need to sort of, keep our B players and connect them to their A players because that's how they become better A players. And the funny thing is going to happen is usually when somebody gets rid of that C player, you're going to find out is people come up to the boss and sort of say, "What took you so long?" And because of that, all that negativity is gone. Everybody now is in a better mood, and they all step up and have that ability to replace that person that left, right? So
So
it helps
Steve,
with that transition. Yeah.
okay, I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about, existing companies with existing employees. Are we gonna focus though, like, so a bunch of people here they want to make their first hire or their early stage. How do you get to begin with?
Okay. So
And you
that's
hire
that's
right.
what All right, that's what I'm gonna cover in the next 10 minutes. All right, so, and, and again, you need to understand this because when once you hire somebody, all this other stuff that I've been talking about steps in. And you have to be ready to handle it. And so you need to plan and prepare for that to whatever level you can. Because there's a lot of frustrations in hiring because sometimes it's hard to find good candidates. When you finally get somebody to show schedule an interview, they don't show, they don't even tell you they haven't. They might find another job, but they don't even tell you about it. And then we're spending a ton of time managing resumes, interviews, doing background checks and stuff. So I'm going to talk. I want you to think when it comes to hiring people and recruiting is you have to think about you are marketing and what you're selling is your business. The question is why would somebody want to work for your company? Again, I'm switching the way you guys think is you have to now start thinking like a marketer when it's trying to find that next employee. Because once you have employees, you always have to always be recruiting, right? And even now, if you know what that first hire is going to be, what that first hire is going to look like, your consciousness is now looking for that type of person. And when we talked about systems last week, we talked about this role and function chart, right? That you should do so you could, even if you're a one person man, know what are all the different hats that you are wearing and figure out what person do I need to hire first, right? Because once I do that, then you can start to systematize that, get that role out of head onto paper. So when we hire that person, we know what they're supposed to look like. We know what we want, what skills they want them to have, right? So, when you're looking, the second step, which leads us to, is trying to identify what does that ideal employee look like? Where do they spend their time, right? When we're just starting out hiring, we're not going to get that A employee, right? Because A employees don't want to work for you yet, right? But we could hire that C or B and get them to move up. A C is somebody that could have the potential to be good. And the B is they have the basic skills that what you are looking for. But you need to define what that is. What do you want this person to not only do, but the most important thing is when they do those things, what is the expected outcome? And usually, if there's a disconnect between those two, that's when you're going to have challenges with your first hire. You have to be really clear on both of those things. So the next thing we want to do is how do we find out, right? Where do we go out and look? And again, think about this as marketing, right? How do we get leads in our business? Referrals, social media, go and start doing social posts and say, hey, my company is growing and I am looking for boom, this position. And what we're going to talk about is not necessarily this position of what is it that they do, but what is the attitude the heart of that person, the type of person that we want. Because we could train skills. It's easy to interview for skills, but it's hard to go out and find people that have heart, right? So, we go out networking. Think of all these different things that you would do for marketing your business. How can you utilize them to start asking for people to want to come to work for you? Does that make sense? All right, let's get you thinking a little bit differently on the hiring the team. And then going back to some of the things that the next thing is WIFI-WIM, which it stands for what's in it for me, right? Again, why would somebody would want to work for you? If you think about it, if you're just working for yourself, why would somebody want to come to work for you? And there are some great benefits for working, and it could be the potential to learn. It could be the potential to be able to grow with you and to be a major part of a growing business because and to find those people, they need to share the vision of what you're trying to create. And if you can't share that with prospective uh candidates, you're not going to find the best candidates for you. You're just going to find somebody who's looking for a paycheck. And that's the difference of what I'm are we hiring really people with heart or people that are just want a paycheck? Does that make sense, everybody? It's getting you to think differently about recruiting, right? And think about what else as a company makes you stand out. And it could just be the freedom of hours that you give them. You know, there's a variety of different things, and they could change with that position over time too. Because when you hire your first employee, but when you have to replace that, your businesses should be in a whole different place. You need to reposition maybe what that job is and what you want to get from that person or what benefits that they get from it, right? Because the thing that you need to look at is also know that people, when they go to work for somebody, they're going to Google you, right? So what's your reputation online? What's your business's reputation online? Because, you know, if you think about the last time you went and made a big decision, you probably Googled that company, right? And so you're going to want to find out as much as possible about that. And it could be as simple as, oh, hey, I don't have a website for my company yet, but I have a LinkedIn profile for myself. So it needs to come across as professional and you need to come across as somebody would want to work for, right? That makes sense. And because remembering that first impression is going to make a big difference when people want to come to work for you. And again, I'm trying to help you to differentiate between just hiring somebody do stuff because you don't have time to do it, which is one reason to hire somebody, or hiring somebody that wants to help you build your business, that wants to create that buy into that common goal of I want to become known as the best in the industry. And it could just be your small little niche in your neck of the woods, wherever you are. It doesn't have to be a very big thing. Does that make sense? Right? So number 5 is, you know, sort of create that sense of urgency, you know, depending on the job and where it is it doesn't, maybe this might not apply with everybody, but it could be to where if you're hiring for a very competitive position, sometimes signing bonuses, sometimes it's what are the benefits? Hey, if you start now, you'll we're starting this training and you'll be able to do that, right? So just think about different things that you could do that can motivate them to want to make a decision now. So when you're first doing your first hire, it might not necessarily apply. Number 6 is, do you have a written system for want to hire it? So before you start hiring, and the system in the beginning doesn't have to be very complex. It could be very simple, right? It could be as simple as these 4 different areas. It's okay, what's my system? How am I going to generate leads, right? Then how do I screen these leads when they call in, right? How do I do the on-site screening, which is, you know, that maybe that initial interview? What are what questions do I ask? How do I sort of do that? And some of the things that in the handouts is I'm going to give you as a document I got off of from LinkedIn, and it's a great questions of how to interview people to see if they have the right attitude or a right culture fit for your business. So there's a bunch of different ways that those types of things you're going to get in the handouts. And then how do you conduct the final interview, right? So the first step is creating an ad, right? And sort of what you want to do is, you know, how you're trying to get your company to come across as being the best, right? You know, why would somebody want to work here, right? You need to, when you're hiring for a particular position, you need to know what the value is of that position, right? When you're hiring, you need to, in putting the ad together, you need to use keywords and SEO, because again, especially if you're going to promote it on social media, right? If you currently have employees working for you, utilize employees' testimonials of why they enjoy working there. And that's something that a lot of people don't use, is I've had clients that have created employee videos that they send out prospective people that have scheduled an interview, so they start learning about the people in the business before they come to the interview. Why? Because they're trying to sell them on wanting to work there, right? And then the other thing is when you're creating the ad, and I sort of put together an example, we'll talk about it in a second, is keep white space and keep it to the point. So in this ad right here, it starts off with a headline, right? What's the headline? You know, if you're looking, if you are the office manager that we're looking for, you'll be, boom. All right, that's designed to, if I'm looking for an office manager job, I'm going to read the ad. And then you sort of say, hey, Action Coach in Jacksonville, Florida is looking for you if you are, and now talk about the attributes that you are looking for in the person, not necessarily what they're supposed to do. You know, high energy, results oriented, self-starter, trustworthy, people oriented, right? Those are things that are important to you. Those are, a lot of people utilize their success values or behaviors and put those in here, right? And then it comes in, you'll be responsible for the following results. Not you're going to be responsible for answering the phone, but you're going to be responsible to welcoming people into our business, whatever it is. But what's the end result that you are looking for? And again, it flips the switch of a typical ad, and it gets people interested and say, hey, this sounds like a cool place that I want to work. Now, there's two options that you could then come in there. If you possess these qualifications, call us today, give them a phone number, and you can go forward in there. A second version is a little bit different. It's a little bit off the wall, some people might say, is invite them to create a video on their phone and then email it to you. And on the video, you want them to say, hey, what's your life's greatest success? And why do you believe that you're the right person for this position right now? And then you're going to listen to these, and then and then have them email it to you. You're going to listen to these videos, and you're going to see how the cream of the crop is going to rise to the top. And why is knowing their greatest life success story so important? You're going to know what's important to that person. It's going to tell you about what their values are, what they believe is important itself. And then you're going to, of those people, you're going to pick them up and just sort of do a quick little phone qualification and ask them 3 questions about, what's your greatest success? What really, why try to dig deeper into their response that they had. Try to learn a little bit about it and find out what do they think their best attributes. And again, you're trying to qualify these people to see if they want to come in and actually really interview and ask them the in-depth questions, right? The whole process of getting them to send the video is one, and see if they'll, see what type of person they are. See if they could follow instructions, right? Those are the important things to think about. And then, hey, if go in, congratulations, hey, you made it to the next step of the interview. Do you have a couple of minutes right now? And that's when you sort of go ahead and do that little quick phone interview. And like I said, go a little bit deeper in each of those different things that we sort of talked about. And if they don't really fit, you sort of say, hey, we're interviewing a lot of people right now. So if you don't hear back from us, you might not be a good fit, but I appreciate your time. Thanks. Bye. And just sort of move forward from there, right? Other things that my clients use, and I think you actually sort of have access to them, is different types of ways of hiring. So if you just hire somebody, if you just interview them, you have a 14% likely chance to get the right person. If you start and most people then also do reference checking. So now it goes up to 26. If you do some personality behavioral stuff like this, there's another one out there called Profile XP. I think there's Myers-Briggs. I think you can get access to that through Rabbi Wordy, I think right now. I think that's correct. That increases it to another 38%, right?
Yeah,
And
we
then
just do, we do this. We do the strong assessment, which is interests, it's not personnel. We don't do the, there's 2 Myers-Briggs, there's the MBTI and the strong. I don't think we do that one.
Oh, okay, all right. I saw one of the emails out there. I thought that's what it was. But the other thing too is then, them do a test drive, come in and see how they could actually do certain things. That increases it another 54%. Then if there's like an interest or a motivators test, that's another way to match on top of that. I use an assessment called motivators, and it looks at 7 motivators that will influence a person's behavior. So I use that in combination with the DISC, which is talks about observable profiles or behaviors within that. And then you could do other ones that are job matching. But each of these are just a way to get a better understanding of who that person is that you're hiring before you hire them, per se. So, and then the last one is the seventh thing is once you hire people, we talked about it, is you have to keep them engaged, right? Because people leave companies, 68% of people leave because of perceived indifference. They don't feel that they're wanted at the company. They don't feel that they're part of a winning team, if you will, if that makes sense. So, I think that, these are some of the things that I've been sort of, wanting to help you to understand. And I think there's a couple of my ending slides are missing for some reason. That's a weird thing. But anyways, so, but um, it my whole goal that I've in here is sort of get you thinking about not the typical recruitment. I mean, going in and hiring somebody, there's the basic steps, but I want you to think the bigger picture of why am I doing what I'm doing, right? And I'm going to sort of offer this with everybody. So you have to figure out where your business is in the 6 steps, or really of the 4 steps that we talked about. And what are the things that you need to work on that's going to improve your business right now? Right? Is it in the mastery stages? Is it in the marketing and trying to create your USP? Is it, in developing systems, whether they're leverage type systems or they're basic systems of this basic checklist of making sure that I'm providing things in a consistent way? Or how do I hire a team? How do I do that first interview? So a lot of the handouts that you're going to get with the replay of this will be some how-to stuff within that to help you look through that. But what I like to do is the people that if here, and I'll send Rabbi Wordy a link, if you want to schedule a one-on-one with me if you have a very specific, because I've gone through a lot of information, and if you want to schedule a one-on-one to talk about a certain aspect and how to apply it to your business, I'd be happy to sit down and we could do it over Zoom over the next month. I don't have a lot of these times scheduled, so I'm going to send you a link where you can actually set up the time and on my calendar to see what works best for you. Does that make sense? All right. So what I'd like to do is, if just sort of as we're finishing up here, is write down what's like the number 1 or 2 takeaways that you've gotten from today's class or any of the 4 classes, and open it up for any questions at this point. So go ahead and type your number 1 takeaways in the chat. And do we have any questions? But I get you to think different. That was my goal. And thinking different makes
What I
everybody
would say,
uncomfortable.
my comment just from listening to your class, is definitely the way you presented the interview with people is very different than the typical way. In other words, most people just say, these are the job, these are what, the skills we need. If you have those skills, reach out to us, and people do a quick interview. They don't discuss personality and attitude at all.
But that's the most important part of the hire. It's easy to find out that they have the skills, but are they the right? Do they fit you? Do you do you would the 2 of you click instantly, per se? That's more important when you're hiring somebody than can they do a particular job. That's the easiest part of the interview. You know, and again, are you hiring somebody to do a job and just get a paycheck? Or are you hiring somebody to help you create a team and grow your business? If you're looking for somebody to grow your business, this is the process to follow. The old traditional recruitment stuff is if you're just trying to hire somebody to join your team to do work.
Now, I would just want to say one thing. Typically, that the mission statement of a company, like you said, your company's mission statement to empower the world through business education. Creating. Usually, I've seen that it's mostly larger businesses that spend the time doing that. Smaller businesses don't even think about that typically. As you were saying, it's critical if you want people to stay with you long term to have that. So I'm saying you're advocating that even a small little business that's just getting starting out should already have some
Right.
sort of
Well, here,
mission
I'll
statement.
give you an example. And I think I forgot to use this example last week when it comes to that. There was a guy that had started an HVAC business. And when he really sat down and he figured out what his why is he doing this, is his why didn't have anything to do with the construction part. His why is he wanted to give people an opportunity to have a better life. And so he would hire people to be able to give them a job, to be able to earn a living and be able to raise a family and to live a good life. That was his purpose. So what he found was he didn't have to just have an HVAC company. He opened up another company because he now was able to do the same thing with them. That's what drove him. And then when he was hiring people, he looked for people that were and those people then appreciated doing something for someone else. And then that turned into how they did the business, how they treated their customers. It was pretty powerful. That makes sense?
Yes. Okay. So
Oh, also, one of the things too,
yeah.
in one of the handouts that you're gonna get is a position agreement, which will, when you're hiring somebody, and it not only states, and it gave you an example, it not only states this is what you're gonna do, but again, you need to state when you do these things, what is the result? What's the end result of you doing these things? And that's the most important part because you want them, you're hiring them to get this end result, not to just answer the phone. You want them to, when they answer the phone, everybody feels like they're warm and welcome and get their their questions answered and directed to the right person.
Do you want to did you go in this presentation? You didn't cover all the handouts we're going to send out?
Um, I'm trying to think of, I might, and I might not have mentioned all of them. A couple of them that I did. And there, one of the things I didn't mention in here, one of the processes is, you could turn them into a one-to-one interview once they've sort of gone through your reselection stage, or you could do a group interview where you bring a bunch of people together, and maybe it could be 3 or 4 different people. And it's the beginning is you're talking about why you want it, why they should work there, what the next, what the job is, what is entailed, and everybody has a discussion. If you're hiring a salesperson, you have 3, 4 people, and you're talking about this is what the expectations are, and everybody is asking questions. And then you go around and we're asking some various different questions where we have somebody start off answering it first. But the last question is based on what you hear here today. Why would you want to, why are you the right person for this job? And ask them to actually sell themselves. And what you do is you then pick the top 2 people are going to come to the cream of the crop, and you bring them back for one-on-one interviews. So when you're first or second hire, you might not necessarily need to do that because you might not have a ton of applicants or even 3 or 4 or 5 applicants or whatever. But as you're growing your team, that might be a good, and I think I sent an outline of how to do that as well. Trying to think of what else I sent you here today. Anybody, any other questions? So, like I said, there'll be when Rabbi Wordy sends out the replay to this, I'll have them send a link where you can get on a calendar and schedule a call with me to really sort of answer any of your questions on a specific type of area or question that you might have. Or we'll focus directly on you and your business.
Okay. Thank you very much, Steve. This was a great series. Everybody, was nice to do this together with you. Wishing all of you tremendous success with your business endeavors. If CHY can continue to be a resource, you know how to reach us. And I will send out, we'll have sent out the handouts for today's class with the recording and Steve's information to be in touch with him. Everybody, have a wonderful week.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Steve. Take care.